Hello, everyone, and Izabella Ritz with Amazon Made Simple podcast. And today, again, I am live with amazing guest. I am picking only the best in our industry. And today, we're going to talk about something boring but fun, because nothing is more exciting than shipping your inventory into Amazon and all other places, especially when you are struggling with all these rates, containers, air express, and different type of the shipments. However, the background of every single business is always more interesting, because we are working with people. And when you finding out that, like, the former Amazon seller becoming a service provider, and the service provider on a very high level that is going to, like, the high top level events, and everybody's recommending this person, and everybody's referencing, like, oh, you actually have to work with Tactical, you want to know how, why, and what happened, and why this person is not the seller anymore, and why he's doing what he is doing. So, welcome, Ephraim, Ausch, to this podcast, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure being with you, Isabella. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, you told me that you've been Amazon seller. When this journey started, how it started, why did you stop doing it, like, where this business disappeared, and like, what happened?
Right. So how it started was I started working in 2011. I joined the company. They were a local candy and chocolate company where I live in Brooklyn, and they have four retail stores, and then they had a own website. And I joined there. They're a Jewish-based company, so they had the Jewish holidays where one of the most famous holidays is Purim. That's like basically the Jewish Halloween, I would say. And part of the tradition is that everybody gives gifts to each other, like food gift baskets. So it has to be a combination of two different foods. So people buy it for their working colleagues, neighbors, family. So it's a huge part of the kids buy for their friends. So it's a beautiful piece of the holiday is just gift giving. And one of their main holidays was Purim. That was their biggest, probably revenue stream of the year. They sold bulk candy, bulk chocolate, bulk nuts, but Purim was their main thing. So I was just looking for a job. It was right after, I think it was like a year after I got married, and I was looking desperately to find a job. And I told my wife, like, I'm gonna just go pick up the classified that we get like in the local magazines that we buy, and I'm just gonna apply for the first job that I see. And I just saw like we're looking for energetic salespeople to help us with our season. So like I enjoy talking to people. Let me try it. So I called them up, called me down for an interview, and then I started doing that. So I did in-house calls. People called in to order gifts. So I did that for about 6 weeks before the holiday, and then I asked my boss, like, what do I do next? Like, do I stay here, or just is it like a temporary thing? And he said, like, just stay here because we have the Passover season where they were like a Passover grocery. So for people that do like a Seder or something like that, and they live anywhere in the country and they don't have access to all the products, they had a website where they sold that. So I did that for another month because Purim was usually a month before Passover. So I did it for another month, and then I told him like, what's next? So he says like, we used to try to sell on Amazon last year and it didn't work out, so we closed the account. Maybe try again. So all my friends at that age, 2011 was like the peak, probably from when everybody jumped into Amazon. It was easy. It was very little restrictions at that point. The Amazon
You
PPC
can
was not
have a
even
lot of reviews.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Amazon PPC was not even out there yet. It was just a very easy business to go into. So I told him like I'll speak to my friends and let me try it out. So I started doing that. The first couple of months, I was just listing products every day. So I went to the website, took the pictures, listed products, and after like 2 months, I felt like I'm really wasting my time because I wasn't that knowledgeable, like with keywords, optimization, how you do it. Because there was no PPC then. It came out, I think, in 2012 or 13. I'm not sure. I think 2012 it came out. So I wasn't sure what I was doing. We had very little sales, so I started like looking for listings that did sell well, and then started like putting myself onto that listing, like reselling product because they also had product that resold. We started moving that, and then I told them like, I think I see their gift baskets, like different gift type of items that we could sell, and let me try to list one. And I said like you said, like, yeah, try it. So I told him like for really to have good sales, we got to do FBA, like fulfillment by Amazon. At that time, we only did merchant fulfilled, and we barely had any orders. So well, he asked me how many. So like, let's start with 30 units. And he said like, no, crazy, 30 units, it's a lot. Like, what is if it goes bad? So I pushed them. We ended up sending in 25 units. That was right a week before Father's Day. It was received. So that was around end of June. So doing that for a few months, and then in one day we sold all 25 of it. I said, like, you see. So from there we started building out more listings. After I think doing it for like 9-10 months, um, I felt like I really learned well the business. They didn't want to give me a commission, whatever, just regular conversations when employees talk with employers that I'm bringing in sales and I grew it. Like, let me get something. So I decided like they were focused more on the Jewish holidays mainly. I felt like there's a huge opportunity in the non-Jewish holidays like Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Easter. There's so many different holidays where I could really build on it. So I opened my own gift basket business at that point, and I did that for from 2013 till 2017. I was selling on Amazon. Um, it was some good years, some harder years, especially the last year and a half is when Amazon came out with a performance index, inventory performance index. And summer I barely sold because it's perishable items. It's hot all over. The Amazon was not going to accept the product, so summer was dead for me. And then building up again for the winters, where in Christmas season I sold around 35,000 baskets, and they didn't let me send it into Amazon that many units at that time. And at the
And
same
you've been
time,
doing, and you've been shipping by merchant.
yeah, but the sales wasn't the same. So at the same
Yeah, of
time,
course.
pricing on actual nuts products went up like crazy. There was some major drought in South America where most of the nuts come in. Prices went up, so I had to increase my baskets as well, and I lost the buy box on all of it because he can't increase the rates. So I sent a whole sob email to um, Jeff at Amazon at that time, and basically sending them a picture of my kids and telling them like I'm a small business owner, and if I'm not going to get the buy box, I can't do advertising at that point, and I can't even send everything into Amazon. Like it's really killing me, and I'm going to lose everything because I already invested in baskets and I already purchased my orders. I didn't think I'm going to have that really. That's really going to impact me. So I put like you do that reader, like so you could see if somebody saw your email, like email check. So the first 30 minutes, nothing was happening. After 45 minutes, I started getting notification that somebody saw my email. And then within 45 minutes after that, I got like 413 notifications that 400 people saw that email that I sent to Jeff at Amazon. A couple of minutes later, I got a call from Jeff Bezos' executive team saying that we saw your inquiry. We're going to look into it. We'll have a resolution within 3 to 4 hours. And then they opened up my limits. I had no limits at all, and they gave me the buy box and everything. So that year was saved. Um, thank
That's
God we had a
insane. But
very
I remember back to 2015, 2016, they've been working pretty fast.
right. Yeah, that's over.
So
Those
yeah,
days are over. Jeff at
yeah,
Amazon doesn't
those
work anymore.
over. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
So at that time, I started. I did it all on my own. I had my own warehouse, my own staff, and like I started using a co-packer because I felt like I'm going to save a lot of money. I don't need the overhead from a warehouse, so I started going into that. Really trying to see if I could really save money because I had my staff. They were a great staff, and I kept them for the whole year because I needed them for the time I needed them, and that my most of my sales came in Q4, not really the first 3 quarters of the year. Valentine's Day is a 1 day holiday where probably half of America doesn't even care about it. The other half does care about it, but like it's a 1 day event. So it's not like you have a season for it. So I found the co-packer. We started outsourcing it and all that. And at that point, I was like bored most of the time. It's like I'm seasonal. I was trying to figure out things what to do, and like, um, and my dad owned a 3PL at that point. He started the company in 2010, and he was a 3PL for just major retailers, so people that sold to Walmart, Target, big box stores. And he asked me like, maybe you come and join the company here, and like maybe we could build something out of this, like make it more, the Amazon world, like maybe we could do something about it. So we did a lot of thought, and I said like, what are the pain points from an Amazon seller? So like, I had to use a freight forwarder, I had to use a customs broker, I had to use trucking company to pick up, I had to use a warehouse to do my co-packing and then deliveries into Amazon. So there's so many different aspects where I'm not good at logistics. I want to grow. I know how to do listings, I know how to do PPC, I know how to manage the branding and the growing side of the company, but the logistics side is a real headache and dealing with that. So I felt like that was a pain point. So we came up with like, let's be an end-to-end service provider for Amazon sellers, that we handle your imports, your custom clearance, your drayage, that's pick up from the port, 3PL warehousing, and then delivery into Amazon. So we started that.
So now it's
Um,
not boring anymore. So now
right.
now it's a lot of movements. Now you're super
Exactly.
busy and overwhelmed
Exactly.
24/7 probably.
Exactly. So I it got to a point where I got so busy, and like the Amazon part was my back burner. So I had a very close friend that had a good business all year round. He was also in the grocery business. So I said like, maybe I take it on. So like, sure, you could buy it off me. I'm done with it. Like I love Amazon. I want to stay in the community. I want to stay with it. And that's what I'm gonna do in the logistics side, but like I'm done selling. So he bought her off before the aggregator hype, so I just gave it to him for not a big deal. But I just like, here, this is what I want. If you want to take it, and then he took it over. So that's basically how I got into it, and then from there we just started growing more and more. I knew a lot of people in the Amazon industry. I was by every single show as a seller before that, and I knew a lot of people, so we started talking and it started making some noise, as I say, like the to get my name out there. And then the Amazon restrictions came with the unit restrictions and the inventory restrictions right beginning of COVID. That's where we really blew up a lot, because you had big sellers that used to always send everything into Amazon. They never needed a warehouse or a 3PL. And
Correct.
that's when we really started getting a lot of inquiries. And then the last 3 years has been crazy ride, very stressful, but we've helped a lot of Amazon sellers, and that's what I do every day, is just help them logistically, because most sellers are good at what they do. It's not the logistics part; it's the part where, like what you guys do, like is helping them grow their listings, optimization, keywords, all that. That's what really sellers are good at, and that's where they want to focus on, bringing in new products, growing their brand. Logistics is something that used to be very boring. It's not as boring as much as it used to be, just because it was so much chaos the last 2 years with logistics. Everybody got to know more what's happening on that side, but it's still a stressful part of the business. So for me to be able to take that off an Amazon seller, I think it helped out a lot of sellers that we service, and that's what I do. I enjoy it every day.
That that's an amazing story when we have a lot of clients who are coming to us and they're saying, I want to sell on Amazon because I want this hands-free time. So when I'm not doing anything, you got into this time. You actually got into like big sales and you're like, I'm bored. I don't want to do it anymore. And at this point, it reminded me myself very, very much because when I got into seven figures, I'm like, well, now I kind of have everything and everything is working, and I got bored too. I was keep doing some other stuff as well, but I remember this feeling. And you always like, especially if you're an extrovert, you want to do more stuff with like other people and like move somewhere to have
Right.
these calls, conversations, because like, yeah, you can check your account and everything is working there, and you can see the numbers of sales, but nothing is happening. Like you don't have
Right.
problems. And sometimes we're weird people. Like we want everything to be in peace and quiet, but at the same time we're like, no, when it's in
Right.
peace and quiet, I want some chaos going on.
Right.
Here's the question for you. So you are absolutely correct that for the past couple of years, Amazon keep coming up with lots of restrictions and new rules and policies for like limitations. At the same time, when if you're selling pretty fast, these limitations are going away. And at the same time, I believe a week ago, I'm a little bit lost in the time. So I think a week ago, yeah, right after ASGTG, Amazon came up with the new rules, with a new policy about the inventory. So how you can comment this new approach and new inventory changes and how they're going to store it and how these fees will work out and how you can help sellers at this point and how it's beneficial now for you and for the sellers.
Right. So basically, what I did work on the last few weeks, this new inventory. First of all, the fees are going all up in April of 2023 this year, and what I basically worked on is basically a deck where I'm going to be presenting it probably this coming week. I'm being by an event, but I'll probably share it around with different service providers to see it as well. Is basically comparing apples to apples. Is like people think like I'm going to send everything into Amazon, whatever they let me, and just leave it there. They don't realize that after a month and a half of being having product in Amazon, you're paying like it starts like doubling, tripling, and even quadrupling a couple of times by having your product on Amazon. So the right approach is basically how to manage your inventory. Try not to have more than probably 6 to 8 weeks of inventory in Amazon and know your costs. Know what it costs you per unit to have on Amazon and to have it versus in a 3PL or in your own basement, depending how big you are. And it's really shocking to me where some sellers don't realize is I took a scenario where a full pallet, right? Amazon charges storage by cubic feet. We charge by pallet. Some places charge by cubic feet. Most 3PLs charge by pallet. But you take like an average height of a pallet and I divide it into cubic feet. And I'll just say the number, but it doesn't really matter the number, but it's around 75 cubic feet is approximately one pallet. And you take that and you just put it into Amazon's rates and you see how that goes month over month. The first 3 months, it's not terrible. But once you start doing over 3 months and then you get 6 months and then a year, and it came out to be a year, if it's there for 365 days plus, you're paying $500 a pallet a month. And sometimes people don't realize like, yeah, 80, 90% of my product are really selling well. The sell-through rate is good. I'm fine with that. And then you have like 2, 3 SKUs that are really not doing so well. And it's just sitting in Amazon. You don't care. But you don't realize that that 20% that's laying around there is really, really biting into your profit and eating up the well sold product, the product that you are making money and eating that up. Because you look at just one pallet, it costs you $300 over 6 months. Over a year, it's $500 a month. And that's additional to the regular charges. So it's even more than that. And you pay that every month. So let's say you have 50 pallets worth of product in Amazon if you're a nice size seller and you
Correct.
have 3, 4 pallets sitting around, that's over $2,000 a month just on that. So
Yeah.
that's where people really had to
It's a
think about it.
mortgage for like average
Yeah,
apartment or
yeah, exactly.
townhome. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's something that people really need to understand is thinking sending everything into Amazon if you could, and you're not sure if you're going to sell it in the next 2 months or month and a half, is really going to really gamble your money and gamble your business based on that because you feel like, hey, I'm saving a lot of money by sending it to Amazon because I'm avoiding the 3PL side where it's in and out and all those fees. But if you calculate all of that, those numbers really pile up. So that's what I'm trying to that's what I put out. I created a deck as basically 3PL versus Amazon FBA. And the same things with ordering from China is like people bring in a ton of product because you want to be in stock, but don't send it all into Amazon. Divide it up, do something like that. So that was something that I worked on. And the second part that I worked on was supply chain as a whole, right? Prices blew up like crazy in the last year and prices came down, thank God, by a lot. And
Yeah.
where's the parts where it came down and where it did not change. So sometimes people want to negotiate or they start looking around for changes where this cannot change. This is where it is. Things got inflated, this is where it stays. And then there's parts where prices went down, like supplies came down a lot. Actual physical pallets, customers used to pay $20, $22 a pallet a half a year ago, and now it's $10, $15. Then you have ocean freight, where a year ago was $20,000 and now it's $1,500. So a lot of things have changed, but you have to know when you're trying to work on your cost and make sure your cost per unit, what it costs you, know your facts where things that you could negotiate, because a lot of 3PLs out there and a lot of companies out there just stayed with their high rates, even though rates came down at their costs. It's like the right thing is like you go and negotiate, you go and speak to your um, s- logistics partner, whatever you use, try to get that cost down, because supplies came down, trucking came down, freight forwarding came down, and make sure that you're paying the right amount for each of these services. The only piece that stayed in place that affects most sellers is leases on buildings or buying buildings for 3PLs went up like crazy. That didn't budge yet. And the same thing with
Yeah.
labor is when COVID hit, um, we had to increase everybody's salary. And I'm sure all 3PLs have, I know a lot of 3PLs have the same issue, and probably people that have their own warehouses as well. You were not able to get people into your door by paying minimum wage. Those days are over. So every single employee that we have, and we have approximately 130 employees in California, they're all getting paid above minimum wage because there was no other way. There was so much demand for employees, and everybody started raising, like, hey, that guy is giving me $20 an hour. Here I only get paid 16. Like, I'm gonna go for 20, right? So everybody had to keep their people in the door. So that's the two things that didn't change yet. Labor did not come down, and I don't think it will,
And it will not. Of course,
probably. And
the
then
moment
leases,
people feel this taste,
right?
they will never go back. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, and then the second part is the lease rate. So when your 3PL gave you an increase on your storage, it's not something that's to laugh about or try to, hey, I want to pay cheaper. It's this is the two things that stayed, but anything other than that has dropped drastically in price. So know when you negotiate what you're negotiating for, and know which parts you could negotiate, because like I've bumped into a seller and there when the prices for containers was down to 3,000, um when was it, October time or September time, it was down to 3,000 already, and they were still paying 8,000. And so like, what's going on? And so like, I don't know, my freight forwarder is telling me that the congestion is still there, and that, and I told him like, hey, like, we charge this amount, it makes no sense, they're taking advantage of you. So I hear a lot of these scenarios still till today. Ocean freight much
Yeah.
less because everybody talks about it that it got so cheap, but on warehousing or on supplies or on trucking, like, don't pay double anymore because a year ago was double. The price is down 50%. You could get a better rate. Go and negotiate. So that's always my vision is, and when I had my own co-packer and everything, was that it was all about unit cost, knowing what it costs you, so you know how much you could spend on PPC, you can know how much you could spend on pictures or anything marketing that you need to do for your product, because you know your landed cost is XYZ. If it's going to sell in a month, this is what it costs me. If it's going to sell in 2 months, it's going to cost me a little more. But at least you know what your unit cost is. That's the most important thing to be successful on Amazon.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I fully agree with you here. So, to my understanding, you guys are shipping containers. Do you work with like smaller shipments when people are shipping like 3,000 units, or you're working with containers only, period?
No, we have both. We have, it's called FCL, that's full container loads. Then you have LCL, that's less container loads, that we do. Obviously, full container loads will come out to be cheaper per unit, but
Of
obviously,
course.
if a seller is not there yet, LCL is probably the better option. By going by ear, you really have to have light and small compact product to really it should pay per unit, or it sells for a nice value, nice amount that you can mark it up nicely. But air cargo could be very expensive, just
Yeah,
to
I mean,
import a
like
few
by
thousand units.
it
Right,
will
but by
still
sea,
like,
right,
yeah.
by sea, it's mostly a lot of them do LCL, less container loads. It's still way cheaper than air, but sometimes if you have an emergency, obviously air would be the only savior not
And
to
you
run
can
out.
and you can help with that.
Correct.
Are you are you working with like on cantons in China, or you're like working just with like the major ones? Like,
So we have a in COVID we were forced to open up our own office and have our own staff in China. Till then we used to work with agents there. And then they told me like, "Hey, I don't know you. I don't know who you are. Like, we don't have space. We don't have anything for you." And we had like 750 containers waiting to be shipped, and we couldn't ship it out. So within 4 weeks, we had my uncle has he's a partner in a manufacturing company there. We asked him if you have any extra employees. So like, yeah, I have one guy that's actually doing the logistics for that manufacturing company. He might be the right fit. So we hired him, and then within 4 weeks, we had an office in China, and basically what we did at that time, where we would just hunt, we were like space hunters. So we went and we called up hundreds of freight forwarders, agents, vessel companies, and try to get space from them. They were not honoring our contracts that we had. They told me they have no space. They didn't want to give it to us. So that's how we created our office in China, and that's what we right now we have that. Um, and basically, that office in China manages all their space that we need. If they need warehousing there, or like sometimes the LCL, for example, needs to come to our warehouse first, and then they get combined onto other loads. We have those connections, so that's how we operate right now out of China.
when the seller is supposed to connect you and contact you, like if they already have the order to go, or the moment they placed an order, or when the order is almost done and ready to ship.
I would say 2 weeks before it's ready.
Okay.
That's the right way, because like this we could get the space and make sure that we're getting onto that vessel so it doesn't get pushed off or anything. Right now, it's easy because imports are down drastically. In the retail side, it's down 40%. E-commerce is not as much, not even close to that. And but it's still down. Retail still is. I mean, e-commerce is what 13, 16% of total um, total market share. So retail obviously still dominates, but retail is down drastically. So anybody that says they have no space fee or anything like that is just doesn't know what he's doing. So right now it's easy, but the right way is to book it 2 weeks in advance, and then have it scheduled. So right when it gets ready, it could get picked up right away, go to the port, so we could catch that first vessel available. Because from when it's ready till it gets on a vessel, it's usually a 5 to 7 day period. So they need to have it 3 days in the port before. They need to clear customs in China and all that. So the best way is 2 weeks in advance.
Makes sense. So, given that the cheapest way to ship from China is the West Coast, what is your best recommendation to arrange the logistics? Like, for example, when you're creating the shipment inside of the Amazon account, Amazon is the one who is deciding where your shipment is going to. And most of the times, Amazon is not letting you do the West Coast. And even you are talking to your manager inside of the Amazon account, they're not always willing to change for you the location, especially if you're like mediocre seller yet, right?
Right.
So, what is your best solution here, and what is your best recommendation at this point? Because
Right.
you already said you have 3PL at the West Coast.
Right. So I would say most sellers, I would say probably 30-40% of our customers that we have probably use a software for that. So there used to be Shipper Makers Pro, where they are not really functional right now, but there is Seller Chain, there's 9 Yard, there's other softwares probably too. I'm just not, I don't know all the companies that do it out there. Basically, what they do is you create the FBA shipment within their software. And what they do is in the shipment, I forgot the name of it, what the name of it is. It's basically when you start the shipment and then you confirm the FBA shipment. So the process before, when you start the shipment in Seller Central, you do not see which locations Amazon chain will take it to. You only once you want to go confirm, that's where they give you the locations, and then they say, hey, it has to go to South Carolina, Florida, and then California or Arizona, and that's where it gets very expensive. So their algorithm basically sees where Amazon is routing it now, and they could grab one location instead of multiple locations and get it to go to that location. So most people that really have a hard time with it is people that sell oversized product, because oversized product does not go into, it's called transload facilities. Amazon has transload facilities for standard size products where it goes in there and then it gets dispersed around 1920 different warehouses around the country, versus oversized mostly goes into fulfillment centers. So if you're routing it, they want it to have in the East Coast, they want to have in somewhere in the middle of the country, or it's Texas, or it's Ohio, or it's Chicago, and then you have West Coast where they could send it to Arizona, they could send it to California or Nevada. So that's where that software comes in and it tries to save you. But the only down part to that is that it goes into fulfillment center, let's say in Arizona or in California. Amazon's algorithm, and you sit in Florida or I sit here in New York, your listings won't come up as fast if you have a lot of competition that do have product here in the East Coast. So that's the only part where it gets a little tricky, is with oversized. But standard size products, a lot of them it goes to one location, or lately I've seen 2 to 3 locations. But even though all of them are in California for some reason, so I don't know what they're trying to test out right now. So that's okay for standard size because it's still going local. It's still getting paid cheap, but oversized is the biggest deal. Like everybody's telling me, like, hey, do you have anybody that has listings going to California? And then these softwares used to be able to figure that out, but Amazon obviously, the more you trick them, the more they try to figure that out and try to fix
Yeah,
that.
that's true. But at the same time, so I will a little bit rephrase my question. So when we're shipping from China, the cheapest way to ship the product is to the West Coast, and it's almost like double. I think it's 1.2, 1.3, $1.5 per kilogram right now if you're shipping from China to West Coast, and it's almost $3 if you're shipping somewhere else to the East Coast, because
Right.
like again you have to do like a bigger route. So would it not be cheaper if people will be shipping to the West Coast, for example, to your 3PL, and then you will be already shipping from your 3PL to Amazon the amount of inventory they actually need to have in a warehouse?
So it's not going to be cheaper. It will be more expensive because probably, I mean, not always, depends where it really goes to. If Amazon is sending it to New Jersey or to Florida, from the West Coast, you're gonna pay more on your trucking than you would pay to import it straight to that area. So if you import it to, let's say, the East Coast, you say it's, let's say it's $3, it's probably gonna be 4.2 if you're trucking it over. Even though trucking got much cheaper, if you're sending full truckloads, let's say from California to New York right now, it's around 4,800, 5,000. When you ship a full container to East Coast, it's around 3,000. So that just gives you the idea where when that happens. So what some sellers do, they use a software, like I said, or they basically test it out before it leaves China. They could prepare a shipment and they see where it's supposed to go to, and then they route it there. The issue is that once you create a FBA shipment, after 30 days they cancel the PO. So how do you go about that? So what you would do is basically you would ask the trucking company they would use if they make appointments into Amazon. We could do it, or other 3PLs that provide that service of trucking. If we make an appointment within that 30-day period, then what happens in Amazon, it goes from completed, it goes into in transit. So as long as Amazon sees that it's in transit, you have 90 days to be able to get it into Amazon. So that's more on bigger shipment, but even on LCL, like a less container load, let's say if you're sending 3,000 units, you want to send all of them into Amazon, or even half of it, even if it comes to the East Coast or to the West Coast, you could still be under the 90-day period. So as long as you make sure that your freight forwarder or your trucking company or your 3PL makes an appointment on Amazon within that 30-day period, then your PO won't get deleted and you're bringing it into the right port where you're saving the most on your cost on it. So that's what I've been doing with some sellers that are trying to be as strategic as possible, is they create the shipment before it leaves. Some of them even label in China. But even if you're not labeling, you're going to label it in the US, only part of it at least, you know that this PO is not getting deleted for 90 days.
Okay, sounds good. So generally speaking, the sellers, they can come to you if they need 3PL, if they need to ship from China to US, if they need to ship in between US, uh, type of all these logistics, you can take care of it.
Correct.
Okay, so now tell me A to Z when we want to contact you. Like we sellers, as sellers, we want to ask Tacticals to take care of everything, and we will be hands free at this point.
Sure. So basically, the best way to contact me, if you go on our website, it's tacticallogistic.com. You click on contact us. You get like a form, like a couple of questions. You put in your information there. It goes directly into my inbox, and then basically I respond within like a meetings link where they could schedule a meeting with me and talk to me, or if they want to get rates, if they have any specifics, they could just reach out, and then I connect them um, with my freight forwarding team or with my 3PL team, whatever team they need, if they already know exactly what they need. If they're not sure, they can schedule a time with me, or I could go through our rate sheet with them, or people have sometimes just questions they want to know. I have no problem answering them and getting on a call.
That's amazing. So, guys, as you heard right now, genuinely speaking, even the prices went down. Not every single forwarder is ready to share this information with you. And sometimes we're just blind because we trust the market, we trust everything that is going on, and we trust everything that's been in the past and made sense, even we've been upset with that and disappointed. So with Tactical, you will be able to lower your cost today, even it was very high a year ago and 2 years ago, just because the cost went down and nobody's going to overcharge you, because the Amazon game and any business game is a fair game. As long as you pay, as long as you play it fair and the numbers make sense, because again, we all want to make money, and the purpose to do the business is to get rich and wealthy and not bored one day. So please reach out Tactical and Ephraim whenever you can, because when you're going to ship something and work out your logistics, no matter it's coming from China or inside of the United States, they will take care of all this stuff and you will be free. Me, for example, I hate logistics. I don't like it. I don't want to deal with that. And I rather to delegate it to someone who is really, really professional. And Brian, thank you so much for joining me
No
today on
problem.
the podcast. If you have something else to share with the audience, it's the good time to do that.
No, I think I gave it all that I have to help right now. And I'm really glad to be on your podcast and to be a part of this beautiful Amazon community where there's no other industry that I know of that has that beautiful community where so many people, sellers, service providers really try to help each other out to really help people grow and prosper and make money and be successful. So I'm really blessed to be part of this community. I call it my second family. So that's basically what I have in mind is just to stay part of this and hopefully help sellers as much as we can and just educate people on how to go about their logistics and about selling on Amazon.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And say hi to Pearl. Like, she's
I will.
amazing. Like, guys, this family is doing logistics that is covering everything, but we'll talk about it later in the future podcast. Thank you and
Thank you.
talk to you soon.